Where were we about a week ago? Well, maybe you recall that on Thursday Jesus had dinner with his disciples, and then they went to a garden, and some soldiers showed up, and Jesus got arrested, and he spent the night in jail. And then he carried his cross the next day, and well, because of all of those things, the 12 apostles were scattered. And it seemed like everything was lost. But then today, in the first reading, we hear Peter and John in the temple, and, well, they're having a very different kind of time, although they both end up in jail as well. And then in the Gospels, Jesus is beside the seashore, and Peter and the other apostles have gone out fishing. Seems kind of silly, they've already met Jesus twice at this point. They go out fishing, and Jesus on the shore, and he calls to them, and they realize it's the Lord. Peter jumps in, comes to the shore, and then he hauls ashore the net, this very heavy net that he can barely pull in, full of 153 large fish. And I love the parallelism here, that we go from, in a week's time, Jesus being arrested and carrying his cross, to the readings on the next Friday, this Friday of the octave of Easter, to Peter and John are being arrested, and then Peter is carrying this great load in from the shore. And it's these similar things, if you will, people being arrested and people carrying great loads, but the mood is so vastly different. Whereas in Holy Week, on Holy Thursday and Good Friday, and the whole Passion, it's this despair and sorrow and darkness. But now, when Peter and John are arrested, there's almost a joy to it. And same thing with the seashore, there's an uncertainty there, and there's kind of a trepidation, but there's also a joy and expectation. They realize that it is the Lord. And there's this great hope as he's about to give Peter his great commission. And I'm just so fascinated by the progression of our experience of the Lord revealing to his call to us, to what it means to be a Christian. That he shows us that through his passion, he makes it to where even suffering and trials and sorrows and weights to be lifted, and even, being arrested for the faith, suffering for the faith, we can do it with joy, right? The mood of the book of the Acts of the Apostles, everything happens after the resurrection, after Pentecost especially, is so different. Even though it's suffering and great burden still, the Lord has made it to be fruitful and joyful. And that's the great treasure of Christianity, is that, we're still going to have suffering, like things are still going to be difficult, but Jesus, through his resurrection, is going to make it not only bearable, but also, by a great mystery, joyful. That is our Christian faith, that the Lord turns suffering into joy and exaltation. Passion leads to resurrection. Happy Easter. Happy octave of Easter. Let's all have a joyful Easter season, remembering what the Lord won for us in his resurrection.